Hello, everybody. It is that time. Unfortunately, I had to do a remake of this because the video yesterday didn't produce right. So I am re-recording and redoing the live stream of the 6 main causes of injuries. But in this episode, we're going to be talking about how to prevent them. And as usual, you are more than welcome to ask your questions throughout the live presentation, and I may get to them. If not, maybe at the end, what I will do is either create a new video on YouTube and post it on YouTube so that everybody can benefit from that question, or I may just put it in a Q&A for the next live session I do, which will be next Tuesday at 12:15 Eastern Standard Time. So right off the bat, same question I asked yesterday, I'm curious today, what is your favorite workout? And please give the details and what type of season do you like to run it in? Just leave that in the comment. I'd be interested to hear what your training sessions are currently too. Bunch of good questions that I like to see how everybody's at and where they're at with their training. So let's just jump right into it. Today, we are going to be looking at here we go. That is actually a slide ahead. And we will go up. Yes, so today we're going to be talking about preventing injuries, addressing the 6 main causes. Last week, again, I talked about the 6 main causes of running injuries. Now I'm going to talk about how do we prevent these or address these 6 things so that we can prevent injuries going forward, at least the majority of the running injuries that you may encounter. And the first thing we talked about yesterday was shoes, having the right shoes. And what I have been seeing out there is a bunch of people asking about the brands. And I think I mentioned this last week, and how the brand is not so much important, but understanding what your gait is and understanding how your foot lands when you run is the most important thing, or one of the most important things. And going to a local running store, they should, especially if they're equipped to test your gait or are able to see it, they can suggest shoes that would help counter any overpronation that you may have or different types of gaits that you have. From there, with your budget, and then they can tell you, okay, here's all these brands that fit your budget. Here's the type of specific shoe in these brands that will allow you to run practically injury-free, hopefully injury-free. And you should try them all. So try them all as long as they fit within your budget, and they should feel good right at the very beginning, meaning that when you try on a whole bunch of pair, I look for the feeling of I barely notice that they're there, that they're barely on my feet, that I'm kind of like running on clouds. Now, I don't get that feeling all the time, but the majority of the time, that's what I'm looking for, the perfect pair of shoe that when I go out and test run it, that I feel like I'm floating on air. The other thing is that I find that people typically wear their shoes too long, and the recommendation out there, it kind of varies, but it's between 3 to 500 miles or 560 to 800 kilometers. For me specifically, I prefer to look at around 300 miles, and if I feel any slight urge or pain, I should say, in my feet or anywhere in my body, then I will probably start thinking about changing my shoes right away. All right, now let's talk about, if we can get there, running form. Running form. A lot of people are aware of running form and how important your form is. And even though we know it's important, not a lot of people work on it. And I shouldn't say, I mean, the majority of people don't work on it, or they work on some aspects of it. I technically do a lot of checking of my form, and sometimes I do get lazy, and then I find out that I get an injury, or I can look at my shoe and I will see that there is a irregular wear on my shoe than there should be, and that could be definitely based on your form. So every time I get new shoes, I like to check my form. Every time I recover or end up in an injury and I recover from that, I want to check my form. I want to be checking my form continuously, because as we go through, as we age, as things happen, we fall, we you know, crash into things, we bump things. Little things can tweak our muscles, and we create an imbalance and try to offset that with improper form. So checking it routinely. I like to at least check it twice a year. I'm usually changing my shoes more than that, maybe 3 times a year. But also, you can do a video review, meaning that you take a picture or set up your camera. I like to do it as the highest resolution as I possibly can, and to do 60 frames, so 4K at 60 frames, and just have yourself run by. And what you want to see is your entire body. You want to see how your feet hit the ground, and you also want to see how relaxed you are, your posture, all those things. And just, I typically go back and forth across the camera, run towards the camera and away from the camera, um, and get different angles. And then I look at my form. And once I assess my form, then I can make slight adjustments to get it back into the correct, or as close as I can get to perfect. I still haven't got it perfect, but I keep trying to pursue perfectionism. All right. 3 phases of a workout. Okay. So this one's a biggie. I am actually surprised, but not surprised at the same time, because I think this has to deal with more with time management rather than anything else, which is having a sort of like a prep to your run, then understanding your run, and then a recovery. I find that people neglect the true identity to these 3 different phases. So in the pre-workout, you want to make sure you're hydrated, you're getting enough sleep, and that's actually in recovery too. You're getting the right nutrition. You want to be stretching, foam rolling. Those are my big things that I do before I run. Now, I technically can get away with, especially if time is not on my side and I need to get out there real quick. One of the things I like to do is I don't ever skip out on the nutrition or hydration, although sometimes I do forget to drink my water. But when it comes to stretching and foam rolling, you can do it quick. I don't spend a lot of time foam rolling and stretching. I kind of just move through the motions real quick, which gets me warmed up, heated, and my muscles are nice and loose and relaxed. And unless I'm doing a speed workout, I actually don't do a warm-up run. Like, I don't run a half mile or a mile before my physical run. Just doing those 2 things, foam rolling and stretching, typically is good enough for me. Unless I'm doing a speed workout where I know I'm going to be really challenging my muscles. The other thing is, I'll jump to recovery, is that people don't spend enough time in recovery. In recovery, your body needs nutrients, it needs the hydration, and it wants to be healed as quickly as possible. And the sooner you can recover and do your stretches, foam rolling, eating, and hydrating, the better. Now, typically in this phase, I have more time and I will spend more time on my recovery, meaning um, I may foam roll for quite some time. I may just put it down. I may just sit down and foam roll and hold a position much longer. Whereas in the pre-workout, I'm kind of moving. And I should mention in the pre-workout, one of the key things I like to do is, especially if I'm in a pinch, is to address the areas that I know I typically have problems on, meaning they typically cause me injuries, which should be identified by either your shoes or your form or improper balance, core exercise, all those, which I'll talk a little bit about later. But assuming everything is good, I target areas that I know may give me problems. So I may spend time on my calves and my hamstrings and not foam roll my entire body. I also do strides on easy days. So when I'm on an easy day, I will typically do 3 to 6 strides to make sure that I am keeping my body loose, getting working on my form, getting that turnover. So I typically do not do strides on my recovery um, after a hard workout. I will do it before a race, though. I will do some strides before a race. Okay, now the actual workout. There is specific things that a workout is planned to do. Like every day, there should be a goal in mind. You should know the distance, or time if you run by time. You should know the pace that you're going, the terrain that you're going to be running, the speed you're going to be going. Is it hilly? Is it rocky? All those things. There should be a reason and a point to that specific workout. Understanding that reason and understanding that purpose will help you stick to the plan that you have. If you just go out there and run, you may tend to run quicker than you're supposed to run, which then could cause overrunning or burnout, or not allowing your muscles to recover well enough. So when you're doing a workout, make sure you understand what that workout is and do it exactly the way it was planned. If you don't, again, you can cause injuries or get an injury, which leads me to a running plan. Some people get running plans, which is good. Some people don't. I don't necessarily agree with that unless you're just running for fun. But even then, you should probably have a plan. So you, again, addressing what I noted just a second ago, is you need to know why you're running. What is the goal of that run, and not to overdo it or underdo it. So I personally think also with a plan, you should have a coach, but if not, you need to know how to adapt that plan. Plans, even when I am designing a plan for an individual, it doesn't always go as planned. Even when I design a plan for myself, it doesn't go as it's always planned out. I have to make adjustments, and not understanding how to make those adjustments can really cause injuries because you're not adapting to your body in the way it's interacting with that plan. Also, before I even start my running plan, I have an IRP, or an injury running plan. So if I know if I'm going to get an injury, I already know what I'm going to do. I'm not guessing while I'm injured, which may cause me to maybe run through an injury when I shouldn't, or maybe I could be working out when I'm not, and then I'm prolonging the recovery period to get back into my season. And also, a good running plan, if you have one, will allow you to have rest days. And those rest days are important because they're a vital part to your ability to recover and get back out there and do better and become healthier and push yourself a little bit. Running phases. So before last week, I talked about that most people have 2 running phases. I have many running phases. And right here, you can see I have a recovery phase, a rest phase for my mental and physical health, and I have a build phase, base, cycle, taper, and race phase. And each one is designed for a specific part of my season. And maybe you're not a racer. Okay, I get that. Maybe you don't need to taper and race, but you should have a recovery, a rest period, a building, and a base, and a cycle. Um, and I won't get into all of those currently in this live session, but just know that each phase has its place and that there's multiple phases because one, it keeps it interesting mentally and physically to your body, and it's preparing you to take things to the next step. And even the recovery phase is really important, as well as the rest period, so that you can actually go back out there and do another season, and leave off where you, or start where you left off. If you just keep going and going, eventually you are going to burn out or break if you're not very careful. Not necessarily, but typically if you're getting injuries, again, these are one of the 6 areas you may want to look at. And this comes to my final section of, or issue that we may see come up for injuries, which is strength. What I don't see a lot of people do, and which is incorporate mobility exercises, which is good for strength, flexibility, in your form. And I know this seems like a lot, like all these things that I'm throwing at you, but they're important because they will prevent injuries, allowing you to have a better, more enjoyable time and experience in your running journey. Core exercises are good for your form and your strength. All these things, and they're all interconnected. If you have bad form, you could have that impact your shoes, which then could cause more injury. Maybe you have bad injury or bad shoes, which then will create bad form. Bad core could create bad form. Imbalanced muscles, that's a big one. What if your body is imbalanced, either flexibility wise or muscular wise? Your body's going to try to compensate for that, which then will create bad form. So all these things are very important, and neglecting them can really end up causing you a problem where you will get injured. And then you're kind of, nobody wants to get injured. Of course, you can't avoid all injuries. Injuries are just part of it. I mean, running's a high impact sport. And a lot of people think, oh, I'll just go into the store, buy some shoes, and go out there and, just run, or I'll walk and then I'll eventually get into running. And then they end up with injuries, and then they wonder why. All these things need to be addressed. And having the right running program is important, and being able to adapt and change and move forward with your running keeps it interesting. So I cannot stress how important it is to look at these 6 areas if you're getting injuries, especially if it's frequent, and make sure that you look at these. And if you're not incorporating mobility exercises, you should probably go do so. If you know that your core is weak, you should be working on that. Now, does that mean we are going to be perfect in everything? Nope, but we can try to be. But if we're not, then we can look at one of these and say, okay, what is it that's causing me an injury? Is it my shoes? Am I just going in there and buying shoes? Maybe if I got properly fitted, that might save me some injuries. Some of them take a little bit more, like mobility exercises is a continuous process of building and strengthening. So that's those are the 6 parts that I personally think you should look at if you get injured. It's most likely in one of these areas. There are other things, and again, we can't avoid all injuries. We twist an ankle. One of the other things is sleep. Sometimes I don't get enough sleep, so I'm sluggish, and if I'm sluggish because of those three trifactor things, which is water, nutrition, and sleep, and I feel sluggish, well, if I'm sluggish, I'm probably not going to perform well, which probably means that my form is going to suffer, and it could cause an injury. So, yeah, at this point, if you have any questions on these 6 areas, please let me know in the comments. Or if you have any other questions, please leave a comment and I will address those. As of right now, we talked about the 6 causes of injuries, main causes. We now have talked about the ways to prevent them from occurring by addressing and including things or looking at different aspects of running in order to prevent them. And next week, what I'm going to talk about is what do we do when we have an injury? How do we deal with injuries? And that goes back to the IRP plan. Having a plan is important, and I'll be talking about that next week on Tuesday at 12:15 Eastern Standard Time. So until then, I do hope I see you there. Yeah, so until then, happy running.